Episode 20 of So I'm a Spider, So What definitely gave us a lot of information to go through. So without further ado, let's jump into it. So when this episode opens up, it jumps quickly to Kumiko, who is noticing that there is a new envoy from a nearby kingdom of Oats who has arrived into the town and wants to take her away. And obviously she's not cool with this. The villagers are kind of upset of it because they see this as their divine beast that must not be disturbed. And this is kind of starting a little bit of a tussle between the people of the village and this particular envoy. We really quickly get a sense, though, that this envoy doesn't really care too much about what the people there believe. It seems like there is this kingdom is really just searching for an excuse to go into war. So obviously it seems like a very optimal way of doing that is to cause a stir here. But as he's trying to get his men to basically capture this demon of the labyrinth and take it away, she of course fights back and then eventually kills the envoy, which again, there's your excuse. Sure enough, after they send note to Oats saying, this envoy died while in their care, thus begins the war. And so some neighboring countries come to aid Oats, and Oats is now invading the town, and Kumiko's obvious like, I guess I started this, I might as well finish it. And there's like 53,000, I believe they said, soldiers on the way in. And so she's got plenty to fight. And obviously she wants to protect this, what does she call it? The baby vamp or something like that. Baby vamp. And again, correct what she basically caused, which was this war. Honestly, Kumiko, you didn't start it. They were going to find another reason to start it anyways. But I think they were probably trying to wait for them to do something. That way they could get the aid of the other countries. It's not really such a thing of they need an excuse to fight, because apparently Oats was underpowered to be able to actually invade. And so it was getting an excuse that would allow them to get alliances to then invade. Which, by the way, 3 days to pull that off, pretty awesome. I have to give Oats that to be able to pull together that many different countries and then invade within that period of time is pretty significant. I almost forgot, just before they found out that this war was being started, well, it's actually before she got attacked and then ended up killing the envoy, she did have the administrator confront her again, which we now find as an administrator, this, armored-clad guy that talked to her, brought her the cell phone that she used to talk to Administrator D. But this guy, I think she ended up calling him Gilly. I'm going to call him Gilly too, because I'm going to butcher the hell out of that name. But this Gilly guy had two requests. The first one was to stop her attacks on Ariel, which is the Demon Lord. And she's like, I'm not really fighting him. She's really attacking me. And then she realized that she's not communicating. She's like, I've been isolated for so long, I've forgotten how to communicate to people. And so she tells this Gilly guy that, sorry, it's out of my hands. One of my consciousness has invaded hers, and I can no longer communicate to it, so I have no control over it. And he's like, hey, that's unfortunate. I'm sorry to put this request on you. I know that she attacked you and everything. The second request that Gilly had was to stop interacting with the humans. That her actions are causing some crazy stirs, is going to cause too much change in the world, and he doesn't want that. He's like, I understand that you were brought here. I feel really bad about that. It seemed like he's all of it at that point, all but admitting that he was the cause of it. I know they showed the cause was the Demon Lord versus the hero. They were trying to escape the systems and then cause this whole thing. I don't know if that's implying that he was a part of that or something, but he obviously knows that she's not supposed to be here. She was brought here. It's out of her control. So he's a little bit, empathetic in the idea that, hey, I know this isn't your problem. This is not your world, but please don't mess with it too much. And she's like, no, I seen this taboo, or I have this taboo skill. It showed me what is to come, and now that I'm here, I'm going to prevent this world from being destroyed because this is my world now. So, and he's like, sorry that you feel that way. I guess it is what it is, and he kind of goes on in his way. So that was a very interesting little interaction there to, one, find out that he's an admin, and having this kind of conflict that's obviously being created. And sure enough, like the moment that she shoots the envoy, I'm like, well, looks like you're going to cause this stir that he was afraid of. You're going to turn the tides of the world itself, essentially causing a war and then probably taking out an entire nation's army or 3 nations' armies. So we'll see where that goes from here. But on the other side of this whole ordeal, we got a glimpse into the mindset of the teacher. The teacher obviously is conflicted at this point. She feels that all the students hate her. We get her backstory, get a little more insight into her. We find out that she was a teacher that wanted to be liked, a teacher that wanted to be like, fun to be around. So she studied a lot on manga, light novels, video games, anything that the kids at her time was into, she wanted to learn about so that she can converse with the children and be like the best teacher. And that's what she kind of sought after. And sure enough, it made her quite a popular teacher. But as again, this whole thing went to crap because they got transported to this other world. We kind of find out that when she was, transported, she obviously knew that she was an elf and there was elves around her because, again, manga teaches her, taught her about elves. But then, of course, when she was able to finally kind of realize that she had stats and skills, she realized that she had this certain skill that allowed her to save the student roster. And this student roster skill would essentially give her a full list of all of her students. And not only that, but also the past, presents, and futures of these students. And she said the future listings are very vague, but give a time and date and what happens in a vague terms. It showed Kanata Oshima, which said was stripped of skills and dies. It shows Kingo Natsume, which says that dies in battle in the elf forest. And that was all of them, I think. Yeah, that was the only 2 that they end up showing. And I was like, at the first, I'm like, this is totally spoiling everything. But really quickly what happens is that she also gains an ability which allows her to use telepathy. And she uses telepathy as an infant to cry out for help. And the person that hears her cry for help ends up being Potamus. And Potamus arrives at her chamber, and she ends up pretty much communicating to him through telepathy, because she's still an infant, pretty much everything that has happened. She tells him about that they were students from another world. They got transported to there. It seems that she, along with all of her students, are reincarnated. She tells them about how they're in danger. She can see their death coming. And he says to her, okay, I'll help you. I will protect these students. So there we get a confirmation on how Potamus found out about the reincarnates. He didn't have some kind of epiphany or epiphany vision or anything like that. He essentially was told by the teacher. And now, again, this goes back to, does he know about the power of them? Is he using them for weapons? All that stuff is still up in the air. It is assumed, but it's still up in the air. He obviously has something to gain from it, but he's going to do this. This is his goal. And so they go out, her telling them where they're at and where to find them. They go out and either buy, kidnap, steal these children and bring them back to the elf forest where they are being protected. And she again acknowledges the fact that they all they seemingly are upset at the idea they're being pulled away from and brought into what seems like a prison. But this is what she's seeking out. She doesn't quite know what they believe in it, but this is what she needs to do. She feels, as a teacher of them in the past, needs to be even in this world itself. So a lot of insights into her and her mentality, which is pretty cool. So this gets into my thoughts for this episode. Most of it's pretty straightforward. Like, again, getting insights into this new administrator, seeing where Kumiko is now, starting a war, and thus essentially going to be going to war with 53,000 soldiers. I'm sure that when she goes to fight with the soldiers, I'm thinking that the Demon Lord at that time is probably going to engage with her. I don't see her going to get away with just wiping out an entire army, because I don't think they necessarily talk about that in the future. But that is a thing. We'll see where that goes from here. Got a lot of insidious looking derpy faces in our in our future timeline with the Hugo and the Demon Lord marching in on the Elf Village. Showing Hugo there does give some credit to Potama still being alive, because I was assuming that it was going to be Hugo that would end up disguising himself as Potamus. It's still up in the air if that is Potamus, but at least we can say that it's probably not Hugo. It could still end up being, but we'll see. And then like I said, a lot of focus on the teacher herself, which I agree. I think that her stance is perfectly fine. I do like finally getting some kind of insight into her mindset and knowing that she's not misled, but that she is entrusting somebody that she acknowledges herself might be a mistake. She herself doesn't seem like she trusts Potamus, but she had no choice. This is the person that answered her call. She needed to get him out there. Like I said, I kind of figured they were spoiling us on a couple names by mentioning, okay, this person's dying here, this person's dying here. Battle in the Elf Forest definitely implies the battle that's coming up. But I don't see it too much as a spoiler because she already has mentioned that this stuff is not absolute. Her pulling all these students into the forest already has changed some of their futures. She mentioned that there was several of them that were supposed to die. Her bringing them there avoided that. So she was able to change that. So again, in this particular case, having some that are dying and listing where they die doesn't really lead to much because they are not absolutes. The frustration that I have with this episode, and it's been a frustration for a while now, we've joked before about the idea of trying to figure out why we don't like the human side of things in this particular story. Or those of us that don't like the human side of things, I know that some people probably like it. I like the political stuff and I like the grown-up stuff, so to speak. I like the world itself. I don't care about the students. And we've joked before about the idea, is it the baby's version of Game of Thrones? Is it that aspect that's annoying? Is it the animation, which is usually always their 2D side, which is very rough? I agree that it's both of them. And I think with the student side itself is particularly annoying because, and it's rearing its head right now. I mean, it was already there with Hugo. I don't care about Hugo. They keep showing Hugo. I don't care. It's this whole, I'm a student from another world, and now I'm going to kill everybody because I got powers. I don't care. But specifically, like with this whole thing in the Elf Force is absolutely annoying. I don't know that and somebody can probably correct me, and if it's in the anime, somebody can correct me. If I missed it in the anime, they can correct me. Is it implying at all that these students grow up faster? I don't think so. I don't think they've ever mentioned the idea that they grow faster than normal people, which thus gets me questioning, why would these students not have the mind of 30-year-olds? They were a teenager in the other world. They were reincarnated into another world, reborn, and grew up another 15 years. Why do they have the minds of a bunch of dumb teenagers? They should have the minds of essentially matured adults. Now, granted, yeah, you don't really have much to work with when you're young. You're going to be treated like a child. It doesn't help you, mature very fast. But you could assume some of these, especially being in this particular setting of the world, you're going to go through some stuff that you don't normally go through in a normal world. People in medieval times, people in times of old, growing up matured faster because life was rough. Unlike this day and age, when you're growing up, you're often given toys, you're given things to have fun with. Your mind doesn't mature as fastly because you're having fun. Whereas in a time like this, in a fantasy setting, in a time where some of them are growing up in poor families, you're having to mature a lot quicker. And so it does, I do kind of acknowledge the fact that, I acknowledge now that there is technically a bit of a plot hole within this world itself, and the idea that, why don't these students grow up? The moment that they arrived at the elf village and we have a bunch of kids whining about being taken from their family, and it's like, but they weren't your family. Like if you were a 15-year-old or 17-year-old and suddenly a flash of light and you're suddenly being carried by some random stranger in their arms, and you grow up for 5 years within the arms of some random stranger, and then you get taken away by your teacher to an elf village, are you going to be mad? No, you're in another world, and your teacher showed up to say, hey, we're going to get you out of here. You're just not safe. Again, that immaturity that shouldn't exist, because at that point when they got taken away, they should be in the mindset 20-year-old, grow up kind of thing. And so that is the frustration, is this annoyance of the immaturity of these kids whining about really stupid things. And it does suck because the teacher does acknowledge the fact that she couldn't tell the students what their future was. The limit of this skill was that she can't see her own future, so she doesn't know when she's going to die, if she is going to die, and she can't tell the students what she's seen in that future. So it is like one of probably, again, one of those really annoying things where it's like you could solve this entire situation by just telling them that, hey, you're going to die. I brought you here to keep you safe. I mean, she has told them that she was going to keep them safe there, but like, what's the limitation? She can't say, if she goes to say, well, I brought you here to protect you because you were, I can't tell them. It's my block in my voice. I don't know. Is it a Subaru thing from ReZero where suddenly her heart starts to want to explode? I don't know. That's my frustration, is I can't stand these students, and them coming to the village and having the student council present just like whining about it. It's like, oh gosh, please, let's go back to Kumiko. Let's go back to the adults. There is a frustration there, and like I said, it feels kind of plot hole-ish that they are as immature as they are when they have been around, and they've been alive technically for upwards of 30 years. So they should mature at some point, but it is what it is. You would think that after so much time, they wouldn't be as weird as they are. Like, if you were to run into somebody that you met when you were 15-year-old, and you were 30-year-old now, and you run into that friend that you haven't seen in 15 years, would you still act the same way you would? Probably not. I mean, it's very difficult to kind of get that persona of yourself back out there, but that's probably me thinking way too deep into this, so I probably should cut this video. But that's my thoughts on episode 20 of Soma Spider So What. We'll see where this goes from here. Obviously, everything's still ramping up. But it is what it is. But I hope you guys enjoyed my video. If you did, please leave a like down below, comment down below, and let me know what you thought. Subscribe if you haven't already, and I thank you all for watching. And share this video if you can, and y'all take care.